Hello, everybody. Hi, Kevin.
Hey, Beth. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Fantastic. Thanks.
Hi, B.
B. Murad.
What does B stand for? Remind me.
Here.
Can you hear me?
Oh, I had my volume off for a call yesterday. Yeah, I can hear you now.
Awesome. So did you guys happen to read the book or ever read this book?
I
did not.
got through a few chapters.
So what was very interesting in this book, Awaken the Giant Within, is the audiobook is a quick 30 minutes.
Awesome.
Which does not relate to the hard copy, which is 520 pages.
Right.
It's bizarre. So I kept thinking that, and when I listen to my audiobooks, I'm walking. So I kept thinking I was accidentally fast forwarding when it says I'm finishing the audiobook, because I had the hard copy and I knew that it was 500 pages, which would have been a 10-hour audiobook. It was bizarre. So I don't know. And I even went back to my audiobook to see if I maybe by accident ordered the abridged version, but I didn't. So I guess he just, did the recording for like the Cliff Notes, which was fine, but he never says that in the audiobook. So it's bizarre. But let me start and share with you guys some of the quotes that I found that I liked in the book. And, look, Tony Robbins, a lot of people have differing opinions about Tony Robbins. So I like anyone that is a big thinker and that has proven success on their own account. So when people say, well, how do you like Grant Cardone, or what do you see in Gary Vaynerchuk? Or I just like people that are successful in their own right, and that I think have good things to say that I can relate to. So I went to my first Tony Robbins event like 3 years ago. It was one of the most bizarre things I've ever done, but that's a tale for another call. So a couple of things from this book. So one of the quotes he uses is, "It's in your moments of decision that your destiny is shaped." Can you hear me, Kevin? You're waving? You can, okay. So it's in your moments of decision that your destiny is shaped. And, I think that is crucial in all of our lives, because we all have the power to make decisions, whether I'm trying to buy a big deal, or a big deal for me. And I've hit obstacles again and again and again. And at one point about a week ago, I was like, oh, I just don't know. And one of my girlfriends said, this is who you are. This is what you're made for. You always figure out how to get over the obstacles, fight through it. And in her putting confidence back into me, I made the decision. I made the decision that I'm not going to give up, and I'm going to figure out how to make this deal. And I think we've made the deal. But it was in my decision of, like, I could have decided I'm hitting too many roadblocks. Maybe this is too hard, versus, heck no, I'm going to figure out a way. And I did, and now I'm going to do the deal. So I do think that in our moments, thanks, Kevin, in our moments of decision making, it's many times easier to give up. Has anyone experienced that, where it's just easier to, instead of fighting the good fight? B, you're smiling. Is it B? What's your first name?
Barbara.
Barbara. Okay.
Barbara.
So you're smiling. Do you relate to this?
All the time. Yeah, all the time. I'll sit there and I'll be like so frustrated, and I'll go, oh, screw this, I'm going to give up. And then I say, no. And I talk myself back into it. like what you were talking about. And then once you get back on track again, it's okay. It's all okay. You didn't stop. So all the time, every day, at least once.
Yeah. Nancy, welcome. Can you hear me? Maybe Nancy can't participate. Kevin, what do you think about making decisions? And how many decisions do you, like, I have looked back in my life and said, I've made decisions that I shouldn't have made, right? To maybe they were impulsive, maybe they weren't, to fight harder, but it's in the decision that your destiny is shaped. What do you think about that quote?
Pretty powerful quote, Beth. And, following your career, just the last few years that I've known of you, it's wonderful to hear that one of your friends and probably professional colleagues helped inspire you to achieve you. Like, we all know you to be that bullish professional, and we all need at every level to get by with a little help from our friends. So your anecdotal experience is well received here, and obviously Tony Robbins is an inspiration. So yeah, I love the 30-minute audio version. I'll have to go check it out. I'm in the middle of reading another business book at the moment, but yeah.
I have like 4 books by my bed. It's I like, there is something going around on Facebook in the last couple of weeks where it says, I have way too many of blank, right? Or
Right.
I'm addicted. And all these women are putting shoes. And I would books. I have books. So
Right.
many books.
Well, books are trending, and Tony Robbins is obviously such an inspiration. Like you said, it would be a wonderful topic for another time to share your experience at one of his sessions. I think there's a movie out, maybe like a Jim Carrey or something, called like Yes Man, or one of the comedic actors, and it's basically a spoof on that whole persona.
Oh, I have to watch that.
There's great, brilliant takeaways, even if they're one-liners that help us keep going.
Absolutely.
And in terms of regrettable decisions, sure, there are probably hundreds or thousands that we all have. But as you know, like, each time we have, like, I can't even call it a negative experience, but we'll call it a loss, but we're learning and shifting, hopefully towards the right direction ultimately.
Yeah, I would say the majority of mine regrettable decisions are when I have given up on deals I've wanted to buy because I let people talk me out of them. Like, well, they're not going to be that good, or it's going to be too big. And then other people have picked up the deals after me and gone and done them. So my girlfriend, who knows me and knows that this is, and I try to never look back, because what a waste of time that is. But if I drive by the deal and I'm like, oh, I had that under contract and I couldn't raise the money. When I mentioned that, or, when I was struggling last week, she's like, don't let this be one of those deals. So I'm going to have to send her flowers, Kevin, because you're reminding me that how important, and I told her last night, we were on the phone at like 10 o'clock at night. I said, I think I'm going to make the deal. You help motivate me. But here's another quote. And actually it's in the book, but it's from the Buddha. So he says, we are what we think. All that we arises with all that we are arises with our thoughts. With our thoughts, we make our world. And I was at a conference last week and they said this multiple times. What you think is what you say. What you say is what you do. And what you do is your legacy. And talk about a movement, the whole movement about putting it out there, or your words are so powerful that trying to maintain positive thoughts and using positive words is a feat in and of itself, because I think we all speak very carelessly. At least the talkative ones do. Kevin, and I can tell you and we like to talk, right? Right. God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. That was my dad's favorite quote. But if we're the ones, I have a feeling, Kevin, you're the one, like in my family at the Thanksgiving table, when there's like a silent moment, we're the ones that are coming up with a topic to discuss. So when you're that kind of person, for me, if I was more careful with the words I choose to say to match what my positive mental attitude is, but that doesn't always happen. Sometimes we just are lazy with the word choice. And there's this huge movement on that, on being very discerning and careful with the word choice, and that the words then put the thoughts, and the thoughts put the words, and always thinking positive. In this conference I was at, I just got, this will be my 7th book next to my bed, but I'm going on a trip next week, so I know I'm going to read this one, called Beyond a Positive Attitude, I think is the book. Beyond, I'll have to get it. But and this person at this conference was raving about this book. So I'm definitely going to read that book next weekend on my trip. So mental attitude and speaking it, and creating the habit to not be lazy with our words. And he talks a lot about that in this book.
If
I
I
think
can chime
sometimes
in, Beth. Oh, go ahead, Barbara.
I can say sometimes it's not that clear cut. Like you want to have a positive attitude and charge forward, but you're not sure you're taking the right way to do that. And that's kind of, maybe the doubt is good and bad there, because maybe you should be thinking about it more. Like, am I going to take path A, B, C, D, or E? And you analyze it. Sometimes you talk yourself out of it, but sometimes you talk yourself into it in a better way. I think that it's not always that you can just say, oh, I'm positive and take that path. A lot of times you have to think about your words, think about your choice. And I think that's where I get hung up sometimes, is just trying to pick the right path. So I'm not continually going down the same path that's not going anywhere. Does that make any sense?
Absolutely. And I think that when we do take a path that doesn't go anywhere, right, we have to stop and evaluate and say, okay, why did I take that path and why didn't it work? So that the next time the opportunity presents itself, we say, okay, I'm not going to do that because that didn't work. I'm going to try this. This is scarier, but this might get me to the different path to get to a different solution, right?
Right. And it's sort of knowing when to cut bait and switch the path. Like you're after that big deal and you're after it and you're pursuing it and you're going for it and you want it. At what point do you switch directions?
Yeah.
I think that's your decision point that you were talking
Absolutely. Absolutely. Kevin, you were going to add something.
Yeah, so just a few minutes ago, Beth, when you brought up this recent quote, and I'm listening to you speaking about what we think is what we say, and what we say is part of our legacy and whatnot. And I started thinking like, oh, don't forget about the listening, because we salespeople tend not to be great listeners. I know that you are. And when I was in grad school, I took a professional selling class back when I thought sales was a dirty word. So I was in business school, but my family wasn't in business. I wasn't really exposed to that. So I kind of, sales meant used car salesman. And what I learned was sales was much more about listening, finding the problem and being a solution. Even if you can't solve it right then and there, you're going to earn that person's trust and so on. But as I listen to you now, I'm also thinking about some interpersonal tensions I've got. One's kind of in a social scene, and the other is my girlfriend. And I like hesitated yesterday when she expressed some frustrations, and she's like, I know what you're going to say. So I was like, all right, go ahead. So the good side of me was like, okay, tell me what I'm going to say. And then I went and redundantly kind of I express my negative energy and I regret it. But, like you said, sometimes we have a hard time stepping back and we don't always say the right things. And maybe, and we do. I was thinking about while running, I'm shirtless because I just finished the workout. I wanted to jump on. I live next to the beach. And so this is the attire. I'll put my screenshot of my normal corporate suit on. But as I was running this morning, I thought to myself exactly what you said, Beth. If I were to guide my girlfriend to what I said, it's like, well, you got to take it for what it's worth, and it's what he thinks, and it's a challenge. So I'll leave this commentary with journaling. I think there's also a trend towards journaling among a lot of professionals, and just this year, I finally started journaling. Partly with her support, and then a good friend of mine is a life coach. So if we're journaling, we're writing out what we think before we say, and we're also listening to ourselves as we write. So listening to ourselves is key. With it all goes together. That's my thoughts.
I love it, and I will tell you that. So reading never split the difference, which is, again, in 5 years of the book club, the most popular book we've ever discussed. So if you haven't read that, it is, again, hands down, whenever we plan ahead for the next year, everyone asks to do that book again. So in that book, there's a chapter on listening, and his advice is, if you have, so I read the book during the presidential elections, and I was having a conflict with a dear friend about the elections, and we agreed to disagree. Then I read the book, and the next chance I got to be in the place with my dear friend, in a place where we were together and not on the phone, I said, I followed the instructions in the book, and I said, and it says, ask questions. Just remove your own opinion that you're right about your candidate. Just become a blank slate and ask questions of your opponent, or, your friend's opinion, which is controversial to your opinion, and just ask a bunch of questions. And for as long as you can, just ask questions, let them respond, ask questions, let them respond, ask questions. So I did this for about 45 minutes about my friend's candidate. And I just asked questions. I followed the book's instructions to a T. At the end of the discussion, my friend said, "This was an amazing discussion. We got so much out of this." And it's like she completely, I never said a word about my candidate. And she said, this took us so much further in our relationship. I mean, it was, I was like giggling inside, and I saw how in a negotiation, how important asking questions about the other person's position is crucial for them. Because what happened the next day when we were together, what do you think happened? My friend started asking my questions about my opinion about my candidate, which for months we couldn't get past because we were both right. And we both didn't, so in a tough negotiation, that was in the book, it talked about truly saying, okay, blank slate, what do you like about this person's economic policy? What do you, tell me your opinion about his, whatever the questions I was asking her. But you had to be a sincere listener to the feed, and then ask follow-up questions. And again, I never told her that I was following the chapter's instructions on how to, but it was she absolutely thought it was life-changing in our relationship because I was asking questions, Kevin, and listening and not having an agenda, not trying to change her opinion, not wanting to wait, we wait for people to finish so we can give them our point. Didn't do any of that. And it was a classic. So FYI there. That reminded me when you said about your girlfriend, I said, oh, I want to share that.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you if I can jump in. I was just thinking right before you said that you normally, we're Americans in particular, want to hear ourselves talk. So here I am jumping in. But I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, okay, so what's going through Beth's head for 45 minutes of withholding your perspective and content on political whatever? Was your mind like, did you have to retrain your mind to just pause, sit back and not, were you jumping at the bit throughout?
No, because the whole chapter says you're not allowed to share your opinion. This is a fact finding. You're curious. You want to get into their place. And the whole book is about negotiations. And this guy is an FBI, what's it called? When you hostage negotiator. So he has to get into the mind of the hostage taker, the kidnapper or the hostage guy. So I just followed. I didn't want to tell her my opinion about my candidate. I never responded. I didn't say, but I just asked questions and it was an educational pursuit. And I truly learned some things. I was 100% open, but I'm telling you at the end, when she said, this has been the most awesome conversation, like there was no conversation. It was me asking questions and her talking. So clearly there was no conversation, but she thought because she spoke that there was a conversation, and that therein is the rub, right? Because if all we're doing is telling our opinion to our spouse, our kids, the person that we're trying to convince to buy a property, whatever, if it's one-sided, we won't get to the place where we probably both want to get to. So I wasn't jumping. I wasn't chomping at the bit where I normally would have been because I knew it was an exercise.
And my girlfriend's response that she already knows what I'm going to say. So she hesitates to bring it up and we don't have a conversation. Anyway, egg on my face on my interpersonal relationship stuff. But
look, I've never done it since. I've never done it because I've never now used it in a negotiations. I'm pretty though, when I'm negotiating, I ask a lot of questions. I teach that in my classes. And when we do role play, I have one person secretly, if I have 8 leasing agents and I'm going to do a role play, I text one of the leasing agents, count how many questions I'm going to ask. And at the end of the role play, we go to the secret shopper, whatever, the secret counter. And I say, Barbara, how many questions did I ask? And they go 27. I go, how many of you are asking 27 questions when you're showing space? Normally, like what Kevin was saying earlier, is when we are brought up and taught to sell, quote unquote, we think selling is convincing. And we think convincing is, here are the 42 benefits about my product. When in fact, selling is none of that. Selling is, what market are you looking in? How long have you been looking in the market? What do you like about my property? What don't you like about your current property you're in? What do you like about all these questions? How do you get your customer? Is it word of mouth? So questions, so that you can say, okay, my property is a good match because we have this, this, and this, or my property is not a good match because I don't fit your needs, what you just answered. So, all right, let's go back to the book. I love this quote. Most fears in life rarely come to fruition. So this defines my mother. So my mother was a worrywart of the nth kind. And she would worry about everything every day. And my dad, thank God, balanced her out and was not a worrier. He was a dreamer. He believed everything could happen, that even the stuff that was just, he was a very, very big thinker. And he always used to say to my mom, see, you worried about this and it didn't happen. The time that you spent worrying about all of this stuff that never happens takes years off of your life. So I thank God I took my dad's point of view and positioning, but my sister is a worrywart and she follows after my mom. And I would say to probably, if I'm with my sister 10 hours a week, in every conversation, she says, you know what I'm worried about? Tell me what you're worried about now. So, but most fears in life rarely come to fruition. And I think that is so true. We worry about stuff and we spend time thinking, what if, that 95% of it never happens. So how about anyone? Who's the 949? Is that Dee Dee? California on the call? All right. Nancy, can you speak up or no? You're not available to speak today.
Can you
All
unmute
right.
her?
I'm on calling. Well, the odd thing is I had trouble calling in and now I'm on your video. So you might see both connected. I don't know.
Oh, are you the 949?
I don't know.
Oh,
I
okay.
had to take a walk for a second.
Are you a worrier?
Never. Only about a few things. I mean, I grew up with a mother that lost her father very young age, and she, pushed ahead, and that's my, I push ahead. Now, when COVID came, I was dating a worrier, and that was problematic. It's totally opposite of me. So.
Yeah, I bet, was he a drainer?
He was an obsessive compulsive and other problems, but he's one of the top professionals in a certain industry. So he should have channeled his energies into other things, but he was worrying about this and that. And that's totally opposite of me. So.
But Barbara, are you a worrier?
I am the opposite of Nancy. I am a worrier and I married a guy who's not a worrier. So his license plate is Win One. That's what's on his car. He's had that for a long time. And if I'll
His car
start
say?
worrying,
What is
says
it? What's the?
Win One. One win. I just go for one win, no matter what you're doing. Forget it all and just sort of focus, which is one of the things Tony Robbins said, is to focus. Just focus on winning one. Forget about winning the giant deal or whatever it is. Just go for what's in front of you. And whenever I sort of start to go off the deep end, he brings me back and he says, just keep moving, just keep doing stuff and it'll all work out. So over time, I've gotten much better at that. I've gotten much better at just moving forward and just trying to win one, not win the whole war. Was it the whole war? Just win this battle. Just focus on this thing and get there. And that helps
I
a
love
lot.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said, Tony Robbins says 3 decisions that we can all control each moment of our lives. 1, what to focus on. Barbara, what you just said. 2, what things mean. And 3, what to do in spite of the challenges that may appear to limit us. So the 3 decisions that we all control each moment of our lives. What to focus on. What do things really mean? Like putting things in perspective, right? I always I tell my kids, 5 minutes, 5 months, or 5 years. Is this going to matter? My son dropped a 6-pack of beer. He was going on a trip and he pulled out of the refrigerator a 6-pack. All the bottles fell all over the kitchen, broken beer bottles everywhere. And he was very upset. And I said, this is not going to matter 5 minutes from now. Let's just clean it up and move on. No big deal. Just go buy another 6-pack. But we control what we focus on, what things mean, and what to do in spite of the challenges that may appear to limit us. They may not limit us, right? The other quote, which I really loved, one belief that I've developed to carry me through extremely tough times is simply this: God's delays are not God's denials.
That's a good
Is that
one.
awesome? God's delays are not God's denials. I love that. He says, for most people, the fear of loss is much greater than the desire for gain. You know, they talk about that a lot in marketing, that you market to people's fears because that is more powerful than their hopes and desires, which I think is very sad. I think that's a very sad state of affairs for our world, that we are more prone to take action on or move on because of the fear of loss than the desire for gain. What do you guys think about that?
I'm just thinking about some of the ads that I've seen, and we used to see ads for Coke and Pepsi, and those were sort of happy things, right? Those weren't fears. They were marketing to us based on the positive. Go to the beach and drink your Coke and Pepsi. It seems that over time it's gotten more negative. Now the ads are what, a drug companies up there. I think we've changed.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure
Go
it's
ahead,
always
Nancy.
to the fears.
Okay, so I travel around the world, so I have less fear, you know, and it takes a lot of courage to go into a different country, but I have international degrees and I need that. If you ask me what do I fear about, it's so simple. It's like, should I put a drywall ceiling up versus a drop floor? That's something that I've been dealing with over the last 3 weeks. You know, what is the right decision? Definitely, you know, having access to 8 ducts are much more important than a drywall. But the question is, how am I supposed to make the space nicer? That's delaying my thought process. If you take like the pros and cons, maybe I would be faster. But that kind of fear on how to deal with changing a space is driving me crazy, so to speak.
Well, like for me, that would drive me crazy too, just because I don't like doing it. Like, I'm not a detail oriented person. Like I have friends who will buy houses and be so happy that they get to pick doorknobs. That would drive me up the wall. Like I have to buy a house, everything's done. You know, maybe I would add something, but I don't want to really have to choose. It's just not the way my brain works. So is it that maybe what's causing that is that you don't like the detail? Nancy?
I can't hear you. 1 second.
Okay. Barbara, do you like detail?
I'm having trouble hearing.
Some kinds of detail. I like digging into financial statement detail, but I'm like,
Okay.
I hate the doorknobs and no.
Yeah.
I think we're all probably like that. There's certain things that we like the detail on and certain things we don't.
Yeah.
So I know what I like, but you know, I know how to rearrange furniture. I just don't know how to do some mechanical stuff, and it's driving me crazy. I'm back on, by the way.
We're happy to have you. Well, yeah. So I think that it's true. I think that there's some things that drive us crazy, and then we have the perspective of that. Like how do we dive in, learn what we need to learn, make the decisions and move on? Do we outsource it? But we should take action one way or the other so that we're not in the purgatory of the making us crazy piece, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I had a situation where we were trying to deliver space to a tenant, and we could not figure out how to get them the appropriate certificate of insurance. It was driving me crazy, but I was peripherally involved. And the minute I dove down, and it was driving me bonkers, I was losing my shit over this because I wanted to just get the tenant in possession so they could start paying rent. So finally I stopped everything and I stopped complaining about it and saying, this is crazy. And I stopped and I said, okay, let's start from the beginning. What happened? What happened? What happened? And then once I got deep down into it, and it took me 20 minutes, I was able to resolve it like that. So sometimes I think it's important to, I tried to outsource it. I tried to say, can you please take care of this? Because this is crazy what's going on. And that person wasn't able to do it. So I finally got involved, even though I didn't want to, but then now it got resolved and it's off my plate. Yay. So sometimes we have to do the deep dive, learn the facts so that we can make the decisions and get it moved forward to the next step.
Do you find that sometimes when you do that deep dive, that brings you closer to your goal, closer to the sale? Because I find most people don't do the deep dive. They're just staying on the surface, so they never learn, and then they don't get inside the other person's head. You get inside it a lot more by taking the time sometimes to do that deep dive that nobody else wants to do.
I think so, but I also, Barbara, can see where I have students that take a deep dive 10 times more than they need to, and they're stuck in the weeds on things that there is someone else capable of doing because it's easier versus going and knocking on doors and prospecting and generating new leads. So it's like, why are you meeting the locksmith with the tenant? The property manager needs to do that. Oh, well, I just thought, I'd want to finish up the deal. No. That's their job. You go prospect. So I do think sometimes people use getting into the weeds and getting into the details as an excuse to avoid doing what's harder, which is, knocking on doors and facing rejection. So I think there has to be a happy medium, right?
That's the judgment. That's where I was saying sometimes you have to know when to fold and move on and when to focus and keep going. There's a lot of judgment in that. Because if you just keep dialing and keep going and nothing's happening, then you need to sit back and say,
why is it not working?
In your example, you said you tried to outsource it and you couldn't. That's why I brought that.
Right. I kept saying, why isn't this work? Why aren't we getting this space delivered? Right. This is the 4th time we're going back to this tenant. And then I finally said, that's it. And, I literally pulled over the car, got the person on the phone. I said, walk me through exactly what's been going on. And then it was like, okay, there was a problem in the process. We fixed the process. We delivered the space 2 days later. So I should have gotten involved earlier, but I was busy doing new business and I don't like to go back. Like I already delivered this tenant. Someone else is supposed to get them the space, but it wasn't working. So when it's not working, we have to, find out why and then get involved and get it working. He talks about, so he says, the important thing is to stop questioning. Curiosity has its own reason for existing. One cannot help but be in awe when he contemplates the mysteries of eternity, of life, of the marvelous structure of reality. It is enough if one tries merely to comprehend a little of this mystery every day. Never lose a holy curiosity. So he was quoting Albert Einstein there. But I love that the important thing is to not stop questioning. Curiosity has its own reason for existing. Curiosity for us in sales is crucial. It's crucial to be curious and ask a lot of questions so that we can get to the end goal. What do you think about that,
It's just-
Barbara?
It's just us now.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I came to your call. I was curious. I've never been to a book club meeting before. And I felt like I needed to do something different because reading books is really good. I've gotten away from it. I was curious to know what Tony Robbins had to say, so I actually bought the book. I think we need to be curious, and I think books keep you learning stuff you can't learn any other way. But sometimes we just have to change our patterns, and we have to start learning other ways. Like your friend, your political argument, we're both going at it our own way. Sometimes it's good to pick up a book and read about it, do something like that. Be a little more curious about how you approach life. So this was something different for me. I've heard about book clubs, but I figured let me try this. I need to do something that's different.
Do you love to read?
I used to love to read all the time. And then I think I got out of the habit. You had kids, you didn't have any time, and then you work and you don't have time. One of the problems is finding a good book, finding a book that really holds your attention. In his early chapters, he said most people don't get past the first chapter. I think I don't know, how do you do it? I'll find a book and I'll read it and I'll say, oh, I don't like this book. And and every once in a while I get a great book, but it's not that often. How are you with that?
So, with the book club, so most of the people that listen to the downloads of this, because we post it on my YouTube channel and on my podcast, etc. So a lot of people, we usually get hundreds of people that download this recording and hear me giving the cliff notes, for example, of a book. Some of them read the book, some of them don't read the book. So for the book club, we pick 12 books a year that we read, one a month, and we have this discussion. And like I said earlier, absolutely the top book of 5 years of book clubs is Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. Everyone loves that book if you want to learn more about negotiations.
Mhm.
So there are some books like this book. We've never done a Tony Robbins book. And what happens is at the end of every year, when we're deciding on what are the next 12 books for the coming year, I go on LinkedIn and I say, what books do you guys want? And I always get, someone always mentions a Tony Robbins book. So I thought this year would be the year to have a Tony Robbins book. We also every year pick a book or two that are old classics. So next month we have Think and Grow Rich, but earlier on in the year we had The Alchemist, which is again a 20s or 30s book. So I didn't love this book, but and I didn't read the whole hardcover. I probably got 75% of the way through, but I listened to the entire audio twice because I thought I messed up with that. I thought that was the most bizarre thing. That's never happened to me before, where the audio was significantly
I think it
less.
makes sense because I tried reading the book and there's a lot of repetitive stuff.
So I have 6 books next to my bedstand. I always have a fiction book. I usually always have an autobiographical book. And I always have one of these books, like my book club book. So I'm almost done with next month's book club book. The book after that is called The One, and everyone is raving about that book, The One Thing. And so I'm excited to get to that one because everyone's raving about that book. So I've had books in the past where people rave about the books. We have it in the book club and I'm like, I didn't love it. And then we had a book last year that I absolutely loved called Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. I think it was the most motivational book I ever read in my life. And so I think that it's depends on where you are in your life at the time you're reading the books. Like, I think if I would have read this book 25 years ago, it probably would have had a bigger impact than now. I'm 61. I've been doing this for 35 years. And, you know, not saying that I know everything in the book, but like you said, there's things in here that there's not a lot of new things, right?
Right. It's a lot of, and he says it over and over and over again. I think the Cliff's Notes is probably a good idea for this book.
Yeah. So, you know, I read fiction books. I try to read a fiction book once a quarter because I don't have a lot of time, but mostly like if I'm going on a vacation or a trip. I was on a week trip in Michigan this summer and I read 3 fiction books. I said, I'm not bringing any self-improvement books. And I read 3 fiction books, so much fun. I can't tell you about any of them. I guess the educating, the one where she's homeschooled. I remember that one because it was so different and unique. So, so yeah, I enjoy reading a lot. I love reading. I have more books than I could ever read. And people, because I love reading and I have the book club, people send me books. Someone just sent me the book on Halston and told me and wrote that it's a great book. So I like autobiographies. So that will get into the queue at some point.
Did you ever
But
read
I
Snowball? Did you ever read Snowball?
love Snowball.
That was one of the ones. It was huge, and I couldn't put it down. That was a great book. That's the kind of book I look for. And Shoe Dog.
Love Shoe Dog.
Nike.
We had Shoe Dog on the book club. Probably it was during the pandemic, I think. So we had Shoe Dog. Yeah.
That was great. So, but do you get through all your books? Like how many of them would you say you finish?
I finish all of them. I can't, it might, if it's a boring book, it'll take me longer. I won't finish this one. This is 500 pages. I'm not going to finish it because I feel like I listened to the audiobook and I didn't get that much out of the first, 65 or 70% of the hard copy. So I won't finish this one. But I finish 95% of all the books I start.
That's good.
I travel a lot. So I'm on planes. I always have a book in my purse. So if I'm sitting at the DMV, like to get my license from my car, I'm usually reading.
Maybe you could give me other ones that are like Shoe Dog and Snowball, because I keep looking for those, just can't put them down.
Did you read the one about Lululemon?
No.
So the book about Lululemon is very similar to Shoe Dog.
Okay.
So it's, like I was shocked with Shoe Dog about how many times that company was a day away from.
Yeah.
Right. That's how Lululemon
bullshitted his way through it, right?
Yeah. That's the Lululemon book. Even though the Lululemon book starts out a little weird because he talks about Landmark, which is this cult like thing. As I'm listening to it, I was riding my bike like 60 miles when I listened to the Lululemon book. I'm like, oh my gosh, he's talking about Landmark. That's, kind of out there. And it drops off from there. So don't let that scare you, but it's so similar to Shoe Dog and the story of Nike. So listen to that. You'll like it, I think. And I'll send you more recommendations as I have right now. I have the story of it's a shoe brand. Anyway, it's another shoe brand. So I'm thinking, I can't think of the name of it, but I'm guessing it's going to be something like Shoe Dog. So I'll keep you posted.
Yeah. I find those every bit as motivating as a motivation book, because like you said, they were at the brink, and what did they do? That was their decision point, right? And what did they do and how'd they get out of it? And you realize, oh, well, he became Nike, and it wasn't all smooth sailing. It was.
Yeah. I mean, early on in my career, I read there's a McDonald's book that was great. There was a book. Do you remember Blockbuster Video?
Yeah.
there was a book making a blockbuster about how Wayne Huizinga built that company into, 50,000 stores. It was fascinating at the time because it was, still in business. So I love all of those books that have to do with, do you like food and chefs and cooking?
Mhm.
There's a phenomenal book, one of my favorite books, called On the Line. I think it's called On the Line, Life on the Line.
Okay.
And it's about the chef Grant Achatz, so Achatz, Life on the Line, where he gets tongue cancer and he's a chef.
Mhm.
And fascinating book. And you'll love it because it's about his actually what happens and how does he run his restaurants. He's
Deal with
opening
it.
a restaurant. Yeah.
All those
awesome.
decision points, right?
Yeah.
Where it could have gone any number of ways.
And if you buy your books on Netflix and if you put, I liked Shoe Dog, they'll recommend you other books. Did you know that?
No, I usually go through
Or
Amazon.
Amazon, that's what I meant. Amazon. If you go to Amazon and put I liked the book Shoe Dog, what are your recommendations? They'll list like 3 to 5 books that are like Shoe Dog that you could read the review and then order it and see.
Yeah, that's good. I think those are important, and you learn, and it keeps you fresh, keeps your mind fresh. Because I read the newspapers a lot, but that's like a shot every day. You don't have the perspective of time. So that's cool.
Well, we usually finish around 12:20, so I'm glad that you joined us today. I hope that you enjoyed it. And if you should, on my website, we have all of these recordings are on the website. So if you want to go back, you can listen to our discussion on Shoe Dog and see if you think that what we said about the book is what you thought about the book.
Yeah, I just had no idea of how that, I didn't know. I knew it was a good stock. That was about it, so it was fascinating. That's good. I will do that. I'll also look at Never Split the Difference, because I think that's a really good strategy to just ask questions. And, I joined Toastmasters about a year ago. And one of the things you do there is you evaluate the other people. And that's really hard because you really have to listen. You really do have to listen. And it's sort of like asking the questions. Listening skills are something we all need. We all need more of. So now I sort of sign up for Evaluator more, because it forces you to listen and be asking the questions to yourself. What made this good? What made this bad? So I like that. I'm going to do that more. I know how to do that. I just forget. Right?
Yeah.
You forget.
Yeah, you will enjoy that book. Never Split the Difference. It was fascinating. When someone sent it to me and I said, well, I don't need a book on negotiations. I was very cocky. And then I was on an airplane and literally on page 4, I'm underlining all these things. I'm like, oh, well, this guy really knows his stuff and I'm learning a lot. So it was, it's a great book. You'll love it. And like I said, hundreds of people, when I go to these conferences, they go, we love Never Split the Difference. So I think that you'll like it.
Yeah, and it's a good reminder to ask lots of questions and get out of your head, get into their head, right? I think that's what asking questions does.
Well, next month is a oldie but goodie, Think and Grow Rich. So Barbara, it'd be great to see you again. And thanks for joining us today. And for everyone listening, hope you enjoyed Awaken the Giant Within. Tony Robbins is a big thinker, and he's motivational. He does keep honing the very similar points again and again, but it was an interesting book. But definitely the audiobook went a lot faster than the hard copy. So if time is not on your side, listen to the audiobook. Thanks everyone for joining us. Barbara, thank you so much, and everyone else that joined today, and we'll see you next month.
Bye-bye.